Hodgwtins podcast. Yeah.
Well, but remember, CNN said that 100% of MAGA supports MAGA. Hey, did you also hear that 100% of Starbucks fans support Starbucks? 100% of Sophie Rain's subscribers support Sophie Rain. You heard that?
Right. I heard she's been feuding with her.
She's been beefing.
Yeah, what's that all about?
I think there's some weird romantic energy that I don't share.
Yeah.
You know, I said her name once and she can't shut up about me.
Yeah. How did you bring her up?
So let's just go back 20 years.
Okay.
Clout.
Young.
He's proposing a sin tax on bops where we have to pay 50% to the state on top of the 37 I already paid to the government. And I would be more than happy to pay that if multi-billion-dollar corporations were also being properly taxed. But surprise, they're not. I never usually get into beef with me for clout. So he's proposing a sin tax on bops where...
It's enough for her.
Okay, so you want to pimp that bitch.
I want her to stop being pimped from her pimps at OnlyFans. And the way to do that, first off, right off the bat, I would love to make OnlyFans and all forms of pornography illegal, both the production and consumption of. Sadly, the way the Supreme Court interprets the First Amendment, that'd be very, very hard to do, even with today's conservative court. So let's do the next best thing. Let's raise the taxes on OnlyFans so high that it discourages, ultimately deters that activity from happening. That's how we accomplish it. So if you look back 20 years ago, you ask the average girl, hey, what do you want to be? Oh, a veterinarian. I want to be a nurse. I want to be a lawyer, a teacher, a journalist. I want to be a pastry chef. Maybe I even want to be a devoted stay-at-home mom. The number one profession, if you ask young girls today, is an influencer. They want to be the next generation of Sophie Rains. I'm never going to sit here and shame women who feel like they're trapped in the world of online OnlyFans to pay their rent or to pay their bills or to cover their groceries. If they need help, we're going to help them. But the way to help yourself is not to allow yourself to be exploited, objectified, and commodified by the online platform known as OnlyFans. Selling nude images of yourself on the internet, nude videos, that's not right. It's not good for you, for your self-esteem, for your future. Can you imagine in 5 years how much they're going to regret that? Their new HR manager is going to look them up before they give them a job offer and say, you know, we think you're qualified for the job, but we found these nudes and we can't possibly be associated with you. Not to mention what your daughter is going to ask you in 20 years when her classmates in cafeteria are going to be asking, well, what's your mom doing all over the internet from 20 years ago?
Right.
This destroys families. And so what I've said very simply is OnlyFans is bad. OnlyFans hurts women. So the pro-women thing to do is to effectively end OnlyFans by raising taxes so high. So I call it the OnlyFans sin tax. It is 50%. I actually hope that we pass this tax, but we don't raise a single dollar by doing it. Because if we pass the OnlyFans sin tax and don't raise money, that means young women who are smart and capable, who can do anything they put their mind to, that they've given up on this online degeneracy and they've done something dignified. I don't want to raise revenue. I don't want to have to make money off of this. If they leave the profession and do something meaningful, then we're going to be in good shape. And, you know, the obvious question is, the pushback that I get is, well, it's about freedom. It's America. We can do whatever we want. Okay. So you want to sell your kidney to pay the rent. You want to sell off your 9-year-old daughter to pay your mortgage. That's freedom, right? Do whatever you want. It says the land of the free, the home of the brave. No. It is the land of the free because of the brave. And the brave men and women who have fought for our liberties never wanted us to stoop so low and to allow ourselves to be exploited, whether it's human trafficked in person or trafficked online. And so OnlyFans has become a conduit for that kind of degeneracy. And as governor, I won't tolerate it. And even the people who are critical of me, I'll push them back and say, all right, well, you don't support my proposal, that's fine. Let me ask you, if the number of women doing OnlyFans in Florida doubled tomorrow, would that be a good thing or a bad thing?
Be a good thing for the women. If I'm a pervert, I'm like, man, this is going great. No, that would.
It's bad for the women, bad for their
society.
kids, bad for society,
Yeah.
and not to mention the men who are drawn into lust. Now, I'm not going to apologize for men on this either. They got to grow up. They got to find a God-fearing woman. They got to commit to Christ. They've got to settle down and put a ring on it. No more gooning on the internet. That's ridiculous. What we have to be able to do is create a society that holds women accountable for producing that degenerate content, but I'm never going to shy away from holding men accountable for consuming that content. So there's going to be a tax on one end and a tax on the other if we have to.
So it'd be 50%?
That's right.
Okay, so instead of paying 37% tax, 50% tax.
Correct.
Hey, that's fair. I think it's fair.
And by the way, if she doesn't like it, then she can quit OnlyFans. I mean, it's that simple.
Or just move.
Or move, which fine by me.
Not in my state.
But, I don't want a long distance relationship. So,
Hey, the owner, was it the owner that?
Yeah,
of
the founder.
OnlyFans
He died this past
He
week.
was one of the biggest supporters of AIPAC, right?
yeah.
He was a
Single
rabbi.
largest.
Was he
Yeah.
a rabbi?
He was Jewish.
That's crazy,
Oh, so
right?
was it a rabbi?
He himself wasn't a rabbi, no. The Pornhub guy's a rabbi.
Oh, okay.
We're getting into anti-Semitic territory, guys. we're observing a pattern that is both factual and accurate,
Right,
which
right.
means
It's
anti-Semitism.
like saying the priest owned OnlyFans.
Yeah, I know.
That'd be
it's
weird, right?
It'd be weird. And the thing is that obviously the Catholic Church, I'm Catholic, has grappled with these accusations, and a lot of them have been true and they're wrong.
Right.
Obviously, very, very small minority, much smaller than what happens in public schools, for example, with teachers. But at least the Catholic Church held people accountable and didn't gaslight. And as Christians, we say, look, when someone errs, even if they're in a position of authority in the church, you still hold them accountable. What happened after the founder of OnlyFans passed this week from cancer is Sophie Rain put up a post saying, I'm mourning his death and I wouldn't be who I am today without him. Quite literally. This is her pimp.
Yeah.
This is her pimp. I mean, what is a pimp? A pimp is someone who stands between the men who want the girl and the girl who collects a cut.
Right.
So this guy
Right. He is.
stood between the men who wanted Sophie Rain and took a cut. It's the same thing,
Right.
right? A rose by any other name, a pimp by any other name is just as vile, wicked, and degenerate. And so this is not the kind of society we can keep living in when we tell young women, give up on your dreams, give in to the lust, give in to OnlyFans. That's what I don't want to see for my state. And that's a view that Christians support, Muslims support, Jews support. I think even Democrats, from what I've heard and who I've met on the campaign trail, they support as well. They don't want their daughters to be selling nude images of themselves on the internet. No one should want that for their daughters or for their sons consuming that content.
Right. Right. You got me sold. I was like kind of pushing back on it.
Let me see your browser history. I'm calling Cap.
I can't believe he said gooning.
That's a technical term, okay?
Right.
But in all seriousness, right? It's not a coincidence that young men are socially awkward, don't feel like they can make it, and there's been a rise of online pornography. Look, the old joke when you're 12 years old and you're caught by your parents for watching porn, and the old joke, it was just a pop-up. It just got there, right? No, back in the day, it was an ad, right? Back in the day, I was born in 1995, so I grew up late 90s, early 2000s. And, back in the day, if you wanted to watch porn, it was a process. Like you had to go out of your way.
I remember those days.
I'm sure, I hope not fondly, but now you just scroll Instagram and these thoughts are on the timeline and it's link in bio and they're advertising their OnlyFans and they're barely wearing anything and they're biting their lip and it's really wrong. It's vile.
It's on Instagram, Facebook, it's everywhere.
It's
Even
everywhere.
TikTok.
Even when there's actual nudity on X, which Elon Musk, he said that he subscribes to Christian principles even if he isn't a Christian. Well, subscribing to Christian principles means standing up for women who are being exploited and commodified like that and the men who are being drawn into that lust and that pornography addiction. So I would call on Elon Musk to ban pornography from X. He can do that. The government can't tell him to do that. But as a private business owner, you ban pornography here, right? Right? So it's your private business. So he can ban pornography on X tomorrow without anybody stopping him. He should do that. And so we have to be honest that it's very easy for men to find porn, to watch porn, and to get addicted to porn now more than ever.
Yeah, it's
right?
too easy.
In the 80s, you had to go out of your way. You had to buy a magazine. You had to show ID.
Right.
In the 90s, you had to know all the websites and all that, make an account.
Yeah.
And now you're just on Pinterest or you're on Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah.
And you see a girl who's barely legal
Yeah.
showing off and saying link in bio. That's wrong.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine being like a kid now growing up. Yeah, you'd be at 1 sick.
I'll be a sick, twisted dude. I be gooning. Because I was gooning when it wasn't even easy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Can you blame him for gooning, though? I mean...
But look, so that's what you're going to see. That's on Twitter right there.
Oh, man, I'm gooning right now. Yeah.
Look, she's a cute girl. I don't think she's worth $100 million.
Voluptuous. That girl is amazing. I would kidnap that woman if I wasn't married and Christian. But yeah, she is.
Thank you for clarifying.
She's an amazing woman. But yeah, I feel you. I understand where you come from.
I totally understand where you come from.
You got, you want to be some sort of morality police. You can't just.
Well, and we have to pretend that, this idea that you can't legislate morality. Okay, why are there child pornography laws then? Right? Why are we arresting? Right. So if you can't legislate morality, then what are we even doing? Why is there a government? Why is murder illegal if you can't legislate morality? So clearly we can. The question, though, is are we going to fall for this lie that comes from the left and also parts of the right that says that you're entitled to liberty, 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 liberty. Well, if you have the liberty to sell your own body, why can't you sell your kid's body on the internet on OnlyFans, right? Well, it's your freedom. So where do we draw the line there?
Right.
And it's gotten to the point now where Sophie Rain making $100 million has sadly indoctrinated so many young women all over my state and across the country to say, I want to be like Sophie Rain.
Yeah. Well, if she donated to your campaign, how would you feel about that? If she tried to lobby you?
Well, it'd be pretty hard to change my mind on this one.
Yeah.
But if she wants to drop a couple racks my way, that's fine.